Welcome back to another episode of Even the Sparrow. This is the podcast where you are invited to come just as you are, and where you are empowered to leave encouraged by the Word of God and by a sister in Christ, myself, who loves to speak all things faith, food freedom, body image, disordered eating, and everything in between. If you are new to me, my name is Nicole Wu. I'm a registered dietitian, a non-diet, food freedom registered dietitian specifically, and I love Jesus with my whole heart. And today is going to be quite the episode because I've had it on my heart to share my story pretty early on as I start this podcast because I'm speaking to the daughters of God about disordered eating, about how we are supposed to see food and relate to food and our body image. And here's the thing, you guys. It's not talked about enough in the church, in my opinion. I really feel like that there are a lot of daughters of God, women of God, who are struggling with these things in silence because it's just not something that you're supposed to struggle with, quote unquote, if you're not watching. It's just not something that you're supposed to struggle with, or there's just a lot of shame around struggles in general, but for women and men, if there's a man watching, you are welcome here as well. I just am a woman and I have lived experience as a woman. And so that's why I'm speaking more specifically to the daughters, but thanks for being here anyways. You are welcome to stay. It's just really hard as women to not struggle with these things. I think the enemy has very specifically set out to distract the women of God through distorting our relationship with food and body image. And I won't get way too much into that because my very first episode was a lot about how the Lord has a lot to do with this topic. And so if you want to dive into that a little bit more, go back to my first episode where I talk about that. But I want to get right into my story so that I'm not getting off topic too much. And I really just prayed that the Spirit would lead this. I am usually somebody who needs a script. I need some notes to follow because the enemy has been really good about personally, for me, telling me that I'm not a good speaker, telling me that my words don't make sense or I'm not clear or concise. And so this is me personally fighting that lie live while I'm doing this podcast because I definitely feel inadequate in this area. And so we're going to fight that right now together. Thanks for being here and for being with me as I push through that lie and just try to allow the Spirit to lead my story with disordered eating and poor body image. And I also just pray that the Spirit would allow me to stay away from anything that might trigger you. So I just want you to know that, of course, if you're watching this now, you probably know that the topic is going to be more disordered eating, poor body image topic. But if that could potentially trigger you, just know that I'm going to try my best to really stay away from specifics and more triggering terms or triggering details. But I will be speaking on my experience with it, and I will be speaking on just thought patterns that maybe I was struggling with in the hopes of letting y'all know that you're not alone. If you are a follower of Christ, a daughter of God who is struggling with this in silence, I want this story to bring comfort that you're not alone. You're not the only one who is struggling with this. Trust me, you are not. And the Lord really does want to come beside you in this journey to healing. He doesn't want to leave you there. He didn't leave me there. And I just want to encourage you that you're not alone. And so that's why I want to share my story. And I am going to share maybe some thoughts and just my lived experience that I was really stuck in. So if at any point it becomes triggering, I really do not want to set you back in your journey. I want this to be more of an encouragement. So if you have to click out, I completely understand. But let's just get into it. I am going to start from just a little bit of a background perspective before getting into more of my disordered eating struggles, just so you can get an idea of maybe what kind of built up to that. So growing up, I definitely knew of God. That's my, as a faith background, I'll just quickly share. I definitely knew of God. I believe that God was real, but I never really knew Jesus. I didn't know the gospel. I didn't know about why we needed Jesus. I didn't know about why he came for us and why he had to sacrifice himself on the cross for us. I didn't know him at all. I didn't know him as a person. I didn't know him as God. I just didn't know. And so that's kind of what I grew up with, maybe more of this idea that, yeah, I would call myself a cultural Christian, but I didn't really know what the faith was about more than just kind of a moral compass for being a good person, I guess. So that was my faith background for me personally. And so that's what we're working with on the faith side of things. I also had a really wonderful childhood. Overall, I just loved my family. My family loved me so well. And I don't really remember thinking about food or my body too much. I would say that there were passing moments where I just felt like the enemy started planting seeds of insecurity in the way that I looked and making me think that my body was incorrect, just comparing to other girls around me, just feeling a little bit different than them or a little bit quote unquote chunkier. And just feeling that insecurity start to come in as I saw people around me express insecurity, body insecurity, and just kind of looking inward and feeling like there might be some things that are quote unquote wrong with my body. But usually those thoughts would pass and I would just kind of continue being a kid and eat what my parents served me. And it was just fun and games, not a big deal. When I got to high school, I unintentionally started losing some weight and experiencing some body changes. I had a lot of lifestyle changes around just being more active and also just growing up. There doesn't need to be a reason for your body changes, by the way. We don't need to know exactly what changed our body. So I want to encourage us not to fixate on that. And so I don't want to pinpoint what caused body changes. You know, of course, I was a growing girl, so of course my body was going to change, but I did experience some weight loss during that time period, and I started to get compliments on it. And because of the way that I just kind of grew up and just heard society talk about weight around me, I saw that as a good thing. I equated weight loss with a good thing. And if that's currently your mindset, just know that there's more to that. And it's okay if that's where you currently, think and how you feel. I'll talk about that a lot more in future podcasts, I am sure. But I definitely felt validated by those comments. I didn't even realize that my body was changing that much until I started noticing people notice it and validate it. And again, of course, their intentions were good because most of the people around us equate weight loss with something good. But this also shows the power or the importance of not commenting on people's bodies, because that only fed this desire for validation for me. And so as I was going through high school, this body changes started in very early high school. So throughout the rest of my high school years, I definitely started grasping food and exercise for control. I felt like, wow, this is so interesting that, people started to say things or started to notice me in this certain way. And I just felt empowered that I could, quote unquote, I'm going to use a lot of air quotes here because these thought patterns are just not helpful and they're not true, but quote unquote, control the way that my body looked, control my body aesthetically, and I could get some, result that I wanted or result that was of approval of other people from the way that I looked. And so I started to display some more distorted behaviors, without getting too much detail. It would be more restrictive eating, cutting out certain foods, labeling foods as good and bad, and just trying to hold on to whatever quote unquote willpower I had to stay away from quote unquote bad foods, that kind of thing. So, and I also just started being more physically active and really clinging to that for a sense of control over my body and over my health and over how people saw me. So fast forward to the end of high school, I was starting to deal with, or I guess recognize, some discomfort mentally. I would say overall as a kid, I never really struggled with mental health significantly. I mean, thinking back, maybe there were moments where I didn't know how to regulate myself or I have a freak out. There was definitely perfectionism all of my life. I definitely had some of those issues, but late high school, as I was preparing to go to college or thinking about going through the college application process and slowly starting to realize that I was probably going to leave home for the first time, I started to, now looking back, I know that I was starting to subconsciously really kind of freak out about that. I was feeling scared of the perceived or, expected big changes that were about to come in my life. And I also was kind of in friendships that were really not great for me, or I was around people that were not the best. There were some amazing people around me, but some not as healthy friendships. And so that really kind of took a toll on me as well. And as I was anticipating a lot of change in my life, I think that I was really suppressing the fears that I was having about it, because I just couldn't even think about it. So I started to feel uneasy, and I think that started to trigger more and more desire for control. And so I continued to really grasp controlling everything that I ate, controlling how I exercised, really pushing myself way too hard in both of those areas. I did skip over, I forgot a point. Earlier in high school, I actually really pushed myself too much to the point where I did lose my period. And that's really concerning now, being a dietitian and knowing medically what is going on there. That's not good. And so I didn't know exactly why I wasn't experiencing a period, but deep down, I think that I knew that it had something to do with the way that I was exercising and not eating enough, not fueling my body, but overexerting myself. I felt it. I felt the heaviness in my body. I felt my energy be drained. And I, in the back of my mind, think that I knew it had something to do with it, but I didn't really understand why. So that was part of my journey. I did recognize that was not normal. And so eventually I was able to get connected with a doctor months later and get it restored medically. And praise the Lord, it stayed around. That's good for, my growing body and my bone health, that it came back and that I was able to maintain it. But just because I had my period back did not mean that I was medically well. Ultimately, day to day, I was feeling heavy. I was feeling tired. I was just pushing myself to limits that didn't need to be there. And that I was just going about my day dragging along, which didn't need to be the case, right? So I graduated high school, really excited. I, got into college. I was really excited. It wasn't too far from home, only a couple hours away. So I felt like this is good. This is a good thing for me. I'm excited to try something new. So I move off to college, and for a while I was able to push under the rug my fears of all this change. I was able to just keep my head down. I loved being a perfectionistic student, which don't recommend, but that's how I was. And so I was able to kind of put my head down and focus on school to stay distracted. Well, the problem was I didn't do great in school. So the one thing I was always really good at, I was not good at anymore. or at least to my standards. The transition from high school class to like college classes, college difficulty, I was not ready in college pace. I was just not ready. I was studying science. If any of y'all are out there who are currently taking chemistry and biology or have in the past, or were a science major, or you are right now, I know you get it. It was hard. And I was also just not fueling my brain because I was continuing to unknowingly really grasp disordered eating and overexercise, especially as I went to college. That was really all I did, was go to class, work out every day, no matter how tired I was, and try to study. I would stay up late studying and still not do well on these exams. And that was just unheard of for me. I had never studied so much in my life and still performed poorly. And so that really beat down my just confidence. And so slowly but surely, things just started to fall apart. I went to college without too many friends around. I was just in a relationship that wasn't great for me. Nothing ill towards this person, but it just wasn't working out for the best, I guess, is the best way of saying it. And so just things were really falling apart, and I was just slowly losing my footing in all areas of my life. And I just came to this pit of depression because I slowly stopped seeing purpose. And this is where God gets the glory, because he saw me at my weakest and knew exactly that was the time where he needed to come in for me to see him and to fully embrace him. He needed me to get that low, he allowed me to struggle with this disordered eating and this overexercise and feeling physically worn down, and also allowed me to feel mentally worn down, because I think that's what I needed to run to him. Because I felt so just self-sufficient my whole life. My family situation was really great. I just never felt that deep need for him personally until this point of my life. So we're getting a little bit of a faith testimony mixed in with my disordered eating story, because it just goes together. So bear with me. So yes, I'm still a freshman in college. It's a couple months in, and I'm at my worst. So this is where the Lord, he reaches down and he gets me physically through people sharing the gospel with me, sharing the truth with me. And my heart was ready to accept it because I was so worn down physically and mentally. I needed a sense of purpose. And so instead of my purpose being in school and being a good student, I also, if you don't know this about me, I wanted to be a vet. I love animals so dearly, and I just always thought I would be a vet. And just seeing how I was not performing well in school and feeling like, oh, my future is crumbling because of that, and I don't have purpose anymore. Like, my sense of purpose was just gone. Now, knowing the truth of Jesus Christ and what he did for us and what this means for me just instilled a greater purpose inside of me, because I knew that earth wasn't my home. I was able to grasp that there was eternity after this, and that if I just accepted Jesus into my heart, believed that he is who he says he is, and that he forgave just all of my shortcomings and my sins, and that he just wanted me to bring my burdens to him and wanted to carry them for me, and was the way that an imperfect person could connect with a perfect God. He was the bridge for that. And I started to grasp that and just run in my relationship with Jesus. None of my circumstances really changed. Like, I still had recently gotten like an F on chemistry, and just, my relationships weren't changing. I didn't have a ton of friends yet or community, but I had Jesus. That was enough to pull me out of depression, give me a sense of purpose, and renew my mind. And finding Jesus really was a turning point for me. Now, I wish I could say that this was the end of my disordered eating, but it wasn't. I was still clinging to trying to control my life, even after knowing Jesus and starting to form that relationship with him. and understanding what it was to walk with Christ instead of just be a cultural Christian, what it actually meant to walk with Christ. I still had a lot of control issues and perfectionism issues coming up that continued to drive my disordered eating, controlling everything that I ate, feeling worn down day to day, still hitting the gym all the time, and just not taking care of myself in that way. But as I got into sophomore year and really started to get some friends and some community and just learn more about the Lord, He also called me out of being a vet, and I actually decided to pursue dietetics to become a registered dietitian. And what's so funny is that obviously the Lord put that in my path, but He allowed me to get into this field for disordered reasons because that's what was going to get me into nutrition. So I decided to switch my major my sophomore year to nutrition because I was still disordered and I wanted to be able to control absolutely everything that I ate. I wanted to be educated on it, and I wanted to create my own plans, and I wanted to just be so specific on my food situation so that I could control everything about my body. And so that's what originally drew me into nutrition. As I was growing with the Lord throughout the rest of my sophomore year into my junior year and learning about nutrition, I learned about a different way of looking at nutrition and health. I started to learn more about the research behind health at every size. If you're not familiar with that, I highly recommend looking into that because that's what really started to free me, was the research pointing to weight not necessarily being this end-all be-all pillar of health that our society deems it as. And I was like, that's so interesting. People being healthy in larger bodies. You guys, people can achieve or pursue health in any body size. We see unhealthy bodies that are small and large, but we also see healthy bodies that are both smaller and larger. And so this really opened my eyes to understanding health from a very, very different point of view than diet culture is what I call it. Diet culture really makes health seem so black and white. Don't eat this, eat this. If you eat this, you're going to die. You're going to be so unhealthy. But if you eat this, you're going to live till you're 120 years old. That's just not how nutrition works. As I really started to learn the science, it's like, that's really not how health and nutrition work. But anyways, I started learning about health at every size. I started learning about intuitive eating. If you're not familiar with intuitive eating or that term, it's basically where you are able to tune into your body's cues and your intuition to drive the way that you eat. And intuitive eating is a lot more than just this hunger and fullness diet, like what a lot of people start to say online. Intuitive eating is very nuanced. It's a very nuanced practice because what happens is we get so disconnected from our bodies from diet culture and from this whole idea that we have to track our calories or else we're going to be so unhealthy, or we have to track what we eat or else we won't know how to eat. Intuitive eating actually pulls on the idea that we were born with this intuitive nature. I just think that intuitive eating is so cool because it points back to God's design. He didn't design us to need calorie apps, you guys. He designed us to have an intuitive nature with food. And it feels so impossible to imagine for a lot of people because we are constantly told that we can't trust our bodies or that we have to lose weight and we have to do it through controlling our food and restricting our food. And that's the only way to health. And so if you currently feel like trusting your body and connecting to your body's intuitive signals feels impossible, you make a lot of sense, and I see you, because I was like that too for a while. But after being introduced this way of eating, which is really how we were created to eat intuitively, I just started seeing nutrition and overall health and human body health in a different light. And the Lord really used that to start healing my relationship with food. Now, I never really sought professional help to heal my relationship with food, and I don't recommend that. I don't recommend just trying to do it on your own because it definitely took longer than it could have for me if I were to pursue professional help. So I definitely don't recommend that, but the Lord is so kind and graceful. He really led me to healing my relationship with food through just working on my heart spiritually, because I was able to start letting go of control of my life as a very much a person that is prone to trying to control everything and being a perfectionist. He really challenged that mindset in all areas of my life, which helped me start to be able to release my control of eating and control of exercise and my control of my weight and my body. Because not only was I super tired of trying to control what I ate and how I exercised and how much I weighed, because it's just not as controllable as diet culture makes you think. I was definitely worn down in that way, but the Lord was also showing me, I didn't create you to control it like this. I didn't create you day in and day out to be thinking about food all the time, and for food and exercise and your body weight in your body to be taking up all of your free brain space. That's not how I created it to be. And intuitive eating, paired with just knowing Jesus more, really helped me heal that connection with my body and that trust with my body, allowed me to submit my desires for control to God and submit to how God created me to be, which was an intuitive eater. And so that release of control in a ton of areas of my life really helped me to let go of my disordered eating and overexercise behaviors over time. So as I got closer to graduating college, I would say that I definitely was healed for the most part. I really was fond of, as I became a dietitian, really wanting to be a non-diet dietitian because I really care about people's health and helping people find ways to be healthy and pursue health that don't have this really rigid goal of weight loss that often just leaves people so insecure and just really just beat down, because if you haven't tried to lose weight before, it doesn't work. Diets don't work. Most people end up regaining weight, gaining more than they even started with. I'll talk about that more at a later time, but just know that diets don't work. And it's not your fault. It's not that you lack willpower. It's not that you're lazy. It's that they don't work. They set you up to fail. And we'll talk about how God created us to actually carry weight and how He created our bodies probably in a later episode, but I'll save that. So as I graduated college, I was really excited to start pursuing nutrition from a non-diet perspective and to be able to help people get out of this cycle of going on diets and failing, or just out of this pit of disordered eating or eating disorders that just keeps your life so small because you just don't have energy, because you don't have brain space, because it takes up so much of your life. And so that's really my story. And after becoming a dietitian, I was just really excited to be able to have this impact because I have the education to understand nutrition and understand research and give people the real research so that they can actually make decisions with nutrition that actually empower them to be a healthier version of themselves, instead of leading them down a path of being so disordered and fixated on food in a negative way. So I could really just go on and on about it, but I just want to keep it concise as possible. And so now, after years of being healed from it, I just am really grateful that I can speak into it. And please know that you can do it. You can heal. You can get out of it, you guys. It is not something that the Lord wants to leave you in. I promise you, He has so much more for your life than being stuck in an eating disorder, stuck in disordered eating and compulsive exercise behaviors, stuck in routines of going on and off diets, but never seeing the results, quote unquote, that you want, or never being fully content. Let me tell you something. I realized that being the smallest version of myself didn't bring me more contentment. And I acknowledge that I am in a more culturally acceptable body. I do not want to blindly speak on this topic without acknowledging that my healed body, my recovered body, still falls within what is quote unquote culturally acceptable and societally acceptable. And so I do not face the challenges that people who don't reside in a societally acceptable body face. I know that those are very real challenges, and I have so much compassion for that. But I just want you to know that it is worth healing. It is worth seeking the Lord in this area. It is worth taking that leap of faith to go to places that He's calling you to for healing. It is not going to feel natural every time. It is going to feel really hard and challenging to heal your relationship with food. It is going to be challenging to let go of food rules, right? I can't eat X amount of calories a day or else I'll just gain weight forever. It's really hard to let go of food rules. I know it. It's really hard to let go of an ideal body type or an ideal weight goal. Because let's be honest, having a weight goal can feel really exciting because it gives you something to work towards, but it's an illusion. No, I'm calling out the enemy right now. He wants you to feel like that is a goal and you're going to be so much more confident once you reach that weight goal and all of your problems are going to be solved. That is an illusion from the pit of hell, you guys. It's an illusion. My smallest body made me literally feel small, and it never got rid of my insecurities. Maybe here and there I got the validation that I liked, but ultimately I still had a lot of problems. I still had control problems, perfectionism problems that were holding me back in my life. I literally had less energy, which held me back in my life. And I had brain fog that held me back from being a good friend, from pursuing the Lord how I wanted to, from pursuing school how He was calling me to pursue it. Know that losing that weight or hitting that weight goal will not heal what's actually going on. It will not actually give you the confidence that you think it will. Even if you do get some confidence right now, it will not last forever. And I'm not saying that to discourage you. I'm not saying that to... Also, I don't want to disregard if you've had an experience where you lost weight and you have confidence and you're really thankful for that. But at the same time, your body is meant to change for the rest of your life. Your body won't always look like it does right now. And that is the beauty of how God created our bodies. He created us to age for a reason. He created our bodies to change as we go through different seasons of life. And so what happens when your body changes again? Are you going to be able to confidently move forward in the things that God is calling you to, no matter what your body changes are like? Or is it going to start taking up all your brain space again? Are you going to be afraid to step out into big rooms because you look a certain way? Are you not going to reach out to people because you look a certain way? Are you going to be so caught up in trying to make your body smaller again that you are not investing in your kids, that you're not investing in your work or in the church or in the places that God has for you because you're distracted? Do not fall for the illusion that being in a certain body is going to bring you lasting contentment and confidence. It's just not true. It's an illusion. It is a lie from the enemy, and he wants to keep you there. He wants to give you that feeling of accomplishment every time you lose a pound, a couple pounds. He wants you to keep, it's like, I know this is really extreme, but it's like an addiction in a sense where you're addicted to that feeling of accomplishment. And he wants you to fall for this illusion that you have so much control of how you weigh and you can just control your body. And if it's not working, it's your fault. That is a lie. Your body is not meant to be controlled in that way. God did not create it to be that way. I feel like I just went off about that. And so just know that this is coming from a place of humility, from a place of, I was there. And it makes sense if you feel like your headspace is still there, that, if I just had that body, I know I'd be happier. Friend, don't fall for that. Don't let the enemy keep your life small. I promise you, healing what's actually going on with that desire to be in that smaller body, healing that, working through those fears and that why and giving that to the Lord and surrendering that control to the Lord, being at peace with the body that God gave you, made in His image, is going to bring lasting life to you on the earth. So I hope that, I pray that my train of thought made sense and that you were able to resonate with at least something in my story, or that you were just able to feel less alone. If you are somebody who is struggling and nobody knows about it, hi, I see you. I see you, and I just applaud you so much for even being here, for recognizing that this is holding you back in your life, and for seeking the Lord to rescue you from this, because He wants to. Okay, friends, that is going to conclude today's episode. Again, if you are new to me, I really want you to come join me on Instagram at overflow.nutritiondietitian. I really love interacting with my community there. I'm still building that community, so it would just mean the world if you came to join us. I just love sharing more of those quick tips, quick wins, and quick encouragements there on Instagram, and also get to share more about what is going on inside my business and how I can actually help serve you. And I share a lot more about my offers inside of my business and how you can work with me there. So if you resonate with me or my story, please reach out. Please reach out to me. You can head over to my DMs on Instagram. I'd love to just even get to know you. If you are somebody who has been struggling in silence for a while, just know that I see you and I'd love to connect. I hope you all have a blessed rest of your day, and I will see you next time.